No one can say for certain how the Reich first took shape in the darkness of the metro. Its beginnings lie shrouded in rumor and fragments of memory, carried in the whispers of old caravan guides and half-forgotten histories. Some say it began with the remnants of the Russian National Unity Party, a far-right group from the surface world before the bombs fell. For a time, their voices disappeared, smothered by war and the collapse of civilization. But the metro is a place where silence rarely means death. In Pushkinskaya Station, their voices returned. First came the slogans, shouted with fanatic zeal. Soon the words hardened into action. Non-Russian inhabitants were expelled under the threat of violence, their lives uprooted so the Reich may plant its flag. From Pushkinskaya, the movement spread into Chekhovskaya and Tverskaya, repeating the same brutal purges. In these three stations, the Reich was born, a newborn empire in the dark. At its head stood a single man, the Führer. His word was law, and his followers obeyed with unquestionable devotion. He was a man of fury, his temper quick and his will absolute. Under him, the Reich became not just a faction, but a totalitarian dictatorship. To question his authority was to invite execution. The Reich's ideology was their lifeblood. It was more ruthless than that of their predecessor on the surface. They did not speak of bloodlines or nations, but of genetic purity. In their eyes, a pure human was flawless in body. Any imperfection, be it a missing toe or a malformed hand or even the wrong height or head size, was deemed a mutation. And for mutation, there was only death. Families lived in fear. Children grew under constant scrutiny, and neighbors turned against one another to avoid suspicion. The Führer promises people salvation from the corruption of radiation, but in truth, he demanded nothing less than perfection itself. And yet for the common peasants and workers who lived within the Reich's territory, the full extent of its atrocities was often hidden. Instead, they were presented with a vision of order and strength. Many observed that the Reich appeared cleaner and more stable than much of the metro, most likely due to strict laws. For many civilians, this sense of cleanliness and stability offered comfort, a fragile illusion of normalcy in the chaos of the tunnels. Still, the Reich's standards were merciless and spared no one. Civilians who failed to meet them, whether through deformity, injury, or even falling short of new arbitrary measures, were executed. The same fate awaited even high-ranking officials of the Reich's military if they no longer fit the Führer's definition of purity. This climate of fear drove many civilians to flee, seeking shelter in stations where survival did not hinge on perfection. For those who remained, life carried on under the Reich's banners. Markets and homes functioned as if untouched by the chaos of the metro, but always under the watchful eyes of soldiers ready to enforce the Führer's vision. In this way, the Reich endured not only through violence, but through the illusion of safety, binding its civilians in both comfort and fear. Its armies, meanwhile, reflected the same doctrine, though fewer in number compared to the vast forces of the Red Line. The Reich soldiers were regarded as superior fighters, well-trained, disciplined, and better equipped than most of their counterparts. They embodied the doctrine of quality over quantity. Their command structure was efficient, and tactics precise, an inheritance from the militaristic traditions of Nazism, but also necessity born of their relatively small population. On the battlefield, they were fearless, brutal warriors with iron morale. They charged with confidence, rallying under their banners, often shouting propaganda and taunts at Reds during firefights. To face them was to face not just men with guns, but a wall of fanaticism and zeal. And yet, cracks showed through. In quiet moments, loyal soldiers spoke of missing wives and children, voices heavy with longing rather than rage. Some even dared to question the Reich's ideology, doubting the purpose of its atrocities and considering desertion to factions such as Hansa. The discipline of the Reich kept these doubts muted. Their very existence showed that humanity was still beating underneath the armor of the soldiers. Such an ideology and such tactics won them no friends. Almost no other stations shared their beliefs, and soon the Reich was surrounded by enemies. Their greatest foe was the Red Line, the communists of the Metro, whose creed stood in direct opposition to everything the Reich represented. The two factions clashed again and again, spilling blood in the tunnels. To live near their borders was to live in a shadow war, where raids and ambushes could come at any hour. Yet for all their ambition, the Reich never managed to grow beyond their 3 stations. In the 20 years humanity lived underground, they assimilated no other civilian stations. Their expansion came only in the form of outposts, fortified stations stripped of markets and homes, manned solely by soldiers. They called themselves an empire, but theirs was an empire of boots, banners, and rifles, not of people. By 2035, the Reich sought to break out of its cage. They set their sights on the theater station, a lively hub whose wealth and influence could have lent strength to their cause. But their attempt at annexation ended in failure. As the Red Line forces struck back with decisive force, the counterattack left the Nazis reeling, their momentum broken. The Reds pressed their advantage, advancing from Lubyanka Station towards Schiller, Pushkinskaya itself, the Reich's birthplace. In desperation, the Nazis planted explosives in the connecting tunnel, hoping to block the Red advance. The blast brought down more than the tunnel walls. Water surged through the shattered stone, a flood unstoppable and merciless. It swallowed Schiller, Tchaikovskaya and Tverskaya alike, drowning the heart of the Reich in a single, catastrophic moment. The survivors scattered, fleeing to whatever stations would take them. The Führer's fate remains uncertain. Some say he perished, others that he escaped, lurking in the shadows, waiting to rebuild. But the Reich as it existed was long gone. Its banners rotted in flooded tunnels, its stations abandoned, its empire reduced to rumor. For 2 decades, the Reich had ruled through fear, demanding purity in a world already scarred and broken. Its civilians were sheltered by illusions of stability. Its soldiers marched with discipline and zeal, and its leaders wielded power without mercy. And yet, in the end, it was not their enemies, nor even the people they oppressed who destroyed them. It was the Metro itself, the flood that washed away their empire, leaving behind only echoes of hatred in the dark.